All right, we got a special guest for you today. He's going to give us his ins and outs, talk about his story, how he became where he's at. He's going to talk about the past, the present, the future, what holds for him. It's going to be an interesting show. Troy Lee Gas SSR rider, number 28. Give your welcome for a great person. Let's hear it for Sam Gaynor, you guys. What's going on, buddy, man? How was your day today, just to start it off with?
Yeah, it was a pretty good day, honestly. It was a rain day for work, so we actually ended up going to a job site that's further away, and it was actually in the warmth for once. So that was a nice change. So honestly, yeah, no, it was a good day, and it's even better now that I'm on the BlackListed Mx podcast.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure having you, man. Definitely. So let's get into a little something. First of all, I just want to say it's interesting how, like, I got you on this podcast now because I don't know if you recall even meeting me before when I was at Walton. And I actually went there to go link up with a guy. I'm not going to throw any names, but I link up with a guy, just kind of get some information and stuff like that to kind of network with him. And that network kind of didn't even go through at all. I never even got a response. But when it was my first national with my family, the kids, and the very first race they ever been to. So we were sitting there like around one of the corners, and I said, "Well, let's go before they start practicing. Let's go walk around the pit areas for their first time." We decided to go walk around the pit area, and your truck was parked like the very first one that once we entered the pit area off to the right side. So I said, "You know what? Let's go check out the bikes. Let's go see what's going on." So we walked over there. You had a mechanic over there. I don't recall his name, but it was a mechanic. He was changing your clutch. He was doing something with your clutch, changing the place or putting in a new clutch or something. And lo and behold,
that would have been probably my dad if I had to guess.
Okay, right on. And we chopped it up for a while. We talked for a little bit, and you came out of the trailer just like, I think it was practice was going on within the next 15 minutes or something, and you were suiting up. And my kids were just kind of standing around watching everything, and you came out of the trailer and you asked them if they wanted a sticker or a poster or signed autograph, and you gave my kids the autograph. And like for their first time, that was kind of one of those memorable moments because it was like their very first national, and we still talk about that today, and how it was you who was like very extremely humble, and you approached the kids did not approach you, and we thought that was like one of the dopest things that that we've experienced. And just to be able to have you on the show tonight, from that experience, like the connection, I mean, I just want to say thank you, man. I thank you. Really, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. No worries. And honestly, thank you. I mean, I wouldn't be here if you didn't reach out as well. And honestly, without the kids and without the fans and without everyone like that in our sport, I wouldn't have a job. It's just how it is. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of pros in this sport that, I mean, me and my dad talk about it all the time, because he raced road racing professionally way back when dinosaurs roamed the land. But, I want to be that pro that anyone can walk up to at any time of the day, even if practice is about to go out. And I want you to be able to say hi to me and be approachable and things like that. You know what I mean? I don't want to be that guy that you're like, oh, crap, there's Sam Gaynor. I don't really feel like approaching him because he's probably going to be a dick. You know what I mean? I always want to be open book, and if I can do anything to put a smile on someone else's face, I always will. And as bad as it sounds, it's like me and my dad always say too, the sport only goes for so long. There was one day when people were like, Jeff Gaynor, and like got all excited because he was a professional athlete. Now you hear Jeff Gaynor and you're like, who's that guy? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the Sam Gaynor persona will only last for so long. So I'm just trying to take every single moment of it in as much as I can and give back to the sport and the fans as much as possible.
Man, that is so dope, man, and I really appreciate that, man, because you actually create memories, and those memories last a lifetime, and that's what the sport is about. And I really appreciate you even giving us time on this platform to be able to share some of your memories and some of your stories with us. with that alone being said, let's get into the sauce of this recipe we got cooking here.
Yeah.
So how did it all begin for you? How did you I see your dad. You're saying your dad was raced for a while. So I take it he was the guy who got you into the sport of racing and kind of put you in the passenger seat, so to speak, to get you going.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my story's it's not long, but it's definitely cool in my opinion. I remember I don't exactly remember exactly when it all kind of started. I remember we were watching in the living room. Uh, my dad road racing, and road racing is on asphalt. There's obviously no jumps or anything like that. And he was showing me these clips, like when he was like really when I would have been like I don't know, really young. Like I could barely even talk or anything. And I'm pretty sure he was showing me the video. And from the story I know, I said, "When do you jump?" And then he said, "Oh, I don't jump." And then I walked out of the room because I was like, "This is boring." And then, anyway, so I walked out of the room, and that was that. And then my dad actually got into supermoto biking, which is like half asphalt and then the other half's a dirt bike track kind of thing. So he had a dirt bike, but it was transformed for that, which was kind of cool. And I went and watched him race there a couple times. But anyways, I think my dad put me on a dirt bike when I was 2 years old. I remember the very first time, I actually remember it, was at my neighbor 2 houses down the road. And we lived on a main street, so we didn't have any property. No one had any property. But he had a PW50, and they put me on it, and got on it. Whiskey throttled, held it wide open, and went straight into a fence and splatted myself on the fence. And I didn't even, from what I know, I didn't even shed a tear. And I was just like, that was freaking awesome. Let's get one.
Nice.
And that would have been in like I would have been 2 years old, and that would have been the fall because my birthday is in July. So that would have been like August, September. So then for Christmas that year, my dad got me a KTM Junior, like the small one. And we went riding, and I think it was within 5 hours I cracked the frame and broke it right in half. So then he bought me another one, and I did the exact same thing, and I was still really small. And then he was like, all right, well, we can't do this because you just keep breaking frames right in half, so this is no joke. So we ended up getting some KTM Seniors, which I was way too small for at the time, but it was fun. And then my very first race was when I was like 3.5. It was would have been like the beginning of '04. And we went down to Ohio, I think, somewhere. It was some indoor race.
Okay.
And it was me and my sister. That was my sister's only ever dirt bike race. And for her, there was only 2 people in the class, so she got second. I always joke about it and say that she has a better career than me because she's only ever been on the box. And that was my very first race ever, and I got first. And it was actually funny because, like, road racing, I guess, is a bit of a different platform. So we did the first motos, and my dad packed all our stuff up, and we were leaving, and people were like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "Well, that's the end of it, isn't it?" And he's like, "No, you have a second moto." So we quickly unpacked and did the second motos. And anyways, it was a lot of fun, but it was like we didn't have any knowledge into the sport really. Honestly, like we knew a little bit from my dad in his road racing, but that's not the same. So honestly, it was definitely different. So anyways, so my story's not so long. That's where it all started, and then it just progressively got more and more serious. By the time I was on 65s, we were heading down for Loretta Lynn qualifiers, like all spring long and all summer long. But my goal was always to make it to Loretta's, and I was always like, that's if I have one goal in my motocross career, it's to make it to Loretta Lynn's ranch. And I got close a couple times, got a couple like 10ths and 13ths at regionals, but never actually made it. And then I was pretty, like, I don't want to brag or anything, but I was pretty quick on 50s and 65s. And then once I got to 85s, it was kind of like, what happened? Where did Sam go? Type of deal.
Okay.
So honestly, once we got on to 85s, we pretty much quit the goal of Loretta's just because honestly, I just didn't have the speed and really wasn't there.
Okay.
And then I was on Honda 85s for a little while, and then we switched to Yamaha in 2012. So that was cool because I ended up staying with Yamaha till 2020. So I had a good 8-year span with Yamaha, which was awesome. But anyway, so went in 85s, never really did anything impressive in 85s. I was kind of like, there was always Marco Canella, Tanner Ward, and at the time Austin Watling, and they were nicknamed the Fab Three because they were always battling. And I was always kind of like fourth to fifth, right behind those guys. I didn't have the speed that those guys did, so I was always a little bit in the shadows. And then after that, we got onto bigger bikes on 125s, and I started to catch right back up to those guys a little bit. Like I wasn't right there, but I was definitely a lot closer than 85s. And then those guys quit school, well, went to online school and went down to Florida and stuff for the entire winter. But my parents always said, you're not quitting school at all. You're not going to online, nothing like that. So I would only get to go down south for 1 week at Christmas and then March break, which at the time, I'm not going to lie, I was very pissed off about and very upset about. And me and my parents got into a lot of fights about it. And at one point, they actually said, fine, you do an online class, prove to us that you can do it, and then we'll let you go down south then for winter. So I said, all right, that's a deal. So I think that was grade 11. So I went to go do online class in the first semester so I could go down south in the second. And I didn't even make it 2 weeks in online class. I didn't do it. I hated it. I was like, there's no way. Like every time I wanted to do online class, I'm like, well, I'd rather be riding. I'd rather be doing absolutely anything, hanging out with friends, doing anything except for doing school. So pretty much it was a flop, exactly like my parents expected. So anyways, went back to school. So I went through school all the way to grade 12. My parents always said, you're not racing dirt bikes professionally or going very far in motocross if you don't finish school. Like, we aren't going to support you. They didn't say we're not going to support you, but they just said, you need to get your grade 12. Like, you have to have it. And they always said, like, once you get your grade 12, then we'll pitch in and we'll contribute to your racing as much as we possibly can. So honestly, since I've graduated, they've done exactly that, and they've been by my side, which I'm very grateful for. And I wouldn't be where I am without my parents, that's for sure. So anyways, we kind of played second fiddle to the rest of that group. And then we got onto big bikes. And 2016, I was pretty much one of the top junior riders. I won 2 Walton championships. So that was pretty cool. And then intermediate, honestly, I didn't really have an intermediate year. I raced a couple of the smaller local races just because I could. But once again, my goal to go back to Loretta's really came back to me. And I was like, I really want to head to Loretta's. So my dad said, fine, I'll make you a deal. You have one shot to make it to Loretta's. Because when I was young, we would go to 2 or 3 different regions just to have more opportunities to make it. And he said, I'm giving you one single shot. We're not going to 2, we're not going to 3. You have one shot to make it. If you don't make it, you don't make it. And I was like, all right, that's a deal then. But that was in the B class at that time. And to race B class in the States, you're not allowed to race a pro event or anything in Canada. So I was originally planning to do a couple of the pro races, but then I couldn't because I wanted to go down to the States. So honestly, I was in the States so much, I never really got to race in Canada. But I made it to Loretta's. My regional was an absolute mess. It was at Redbud, and the start line was literally 2 feet of mud. And like we were doing like 3-lap races, but they were pretty much like half an hour motos because the track was just so insane. But anyways, made it to Loretta's, which was a lifetime dream of mine, and I was so excited. So we went to Loretta's in the 450B stock and 450B mod. And I was one position out on 250B, and they offered it to me, but honestly, I wasn't a very good 250 rider. I only ever rode a 250 for, I think it was like 6 or 7 months. I went from a 125, rode a 250, blew it up 3 times in 1 month. And it was just like, 250s aren't our thing. So we went straight to the 450 just because it was more cost-effective type of thing. So we went down to Loretta Lynn's and honestly had no expectations. Like on the drive there, me and my dad said, let's just show up, put a smile on our face, have fun. We're riding dirt bikes. It's just a life experience, and it's a goal we've always wanted. So we went down there with just that mentality. We didn't expect anything. We didn't have any goals, literally nothing. Just go there and have fun. So ended up being awesome. I had my birthday there. And then I went 8, 5, 6 for 4th overall in 450B mod. And then I went 14, 12, 3 for 6th overall in 450B stock.
Wow.
And that third overall, the ride was, it was honestly, it wasn't that impressive,
Mm-hmm.
but that ride right there is honestly what shaped my entire racing career up to
Okay.
where I am now.
Okay.
That because when I and honestly, it wasn't even the ride that, I don't even think anyone ever really saw the ride, like
Hmm.
saw a video of it or anything. But
Mm-hmm.
when I was going up on the podium to do my interview, my mom had a Canada flag, and she's like, "Sam, carry this up with you." And I said, "No, like that's stupid. I'm not carrying a Canada flag with me." And she's like, "Do it." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, fine." So I went on the podium, took the Canada flag, showed it, got a picture taken, stuff like that. It was pretty cool. Did my interview. We were heading home, and then I got a phone call from Courtney Lloyd, and she was asking if I wanted to be part of the Team Canada ambassador program for Red Bud MX of Nations that year.
Really?
So
Wow.
I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. So I jumped on that really quickly, and that's honestly what, like I said, is what really started my career and where I am now, because I went there and tried to work as hard as I could with helping setting up and tearing down all the pits and
Mm-hmm.
doing whatever I could to help out. And I think that was noticed by a few people, which was really cool. And then 2018, the fall, we did the Supercross rounds in Canada here. I mean, they were nothing spectacular. I think I got second last in every single one, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Like, it was nothing exceptional. And then it was going into 2019. My dad sent this email to Steve Sims, who's someone that we kind of knew, but not really knew, because we used to always buy his used tires from when he had his, like, the Rockstar team. We
Mm-hmm.
used to buy their used tires and used plastics and stuff.
Okay.
So he sent an email and said, "Hey, would you be interested in having Sam on the team?" And pretty much from what I understand, my dad got an email back that just said no, and that was that. And then it came close to, or no, it was Christmas. Me and my dad went down for our usual 1 week at Christmas. And then we had a 2019 bike and a 2018 bike. And then I rode them both. And the plan was, we're just going to ride the 2018 bike for practice and race the 2019 bike. And we were going to do the whole series. And then we went down to Florida, and I rode the two bikes, and then huge panic set in because we realized those two bikes weren't even close to similar. The frames were different. Everything was different. It was a brand new model of bike, pretty much.
Wow.
So we got really scared, and we're like, "Oh boy, like we
Wow.
can't afford to buy another bike. Yamaha's not giving us another bike. Like, this is bad." We got really scared. So then my dad pretty much wrote this email to Steve Sims and the owner of OTSFF about, like, why we need to showcase more Canadian talent in Canada, type of deal, and why he felt like I would be a good fit for that team. And anyways, we went through with it. It was pretty cool. I got to be under the tent for the 2019 season, and they helped me out. They got me a bike, and they, got me parts and all that stuff, which was awesome. So we did the entire season in 2019. My goal going into it was top 10, and that's exactly what I got. I got 10th overall in the year, and got my career number, which was super cool, because it's not easy to get one of those. But
Mm-hmm.
I got my career number 28, which was super cool. And then we went into 2020 with Rockstar OTSFF again, and I think I got 6th overall on the year, which was also pretty awesome and not very easy. And then at the end of 2020, we were notified that OTSFF was going to be closing their doors, and that was quite panicking towards us because we were like, we've never even talked to anyone else at the races really, and we don't really know anyone, so, and we can't afford this on our own. Like, motocross, I think, as many people in this world know, is not a cheap sport by any means, and it can really make or break a family, as bad as that sounds. So we were kind of really panicked, and we're like, oh boy. So we talked to every single team that you could talk to in Canada, and really got no interest. We had a couple interests, but really not that much. And then Steve ended up saying, "Hey, hold on, I got something in the works. So just settle down." And then it ended up just after the new year, we got together with Steve, and this Troy Lee Designs Gas Steve Sims Racing team came together, which was absolutely fantastic. And I can't thank Steve enough for everything he's done, because I wouldn't be in this sport where I am without Steve. He's honestly, he's kept me alive, and he's very motivating. He's taught me a lot of things, so I'm very thankful for him. But this year we stepped down to the 250, and like I said, I only ever rode a 250 for 6 months back in 2016 and beginning of 2017. So it was definitely nerve-wracking. Didn't know what to expect at all. And honestly, those guys they're bad dudes. Like, they're super cool and super fast. So it was honestly a little faster than I think I even expected. But even if my numbers they're not quite there this year, but if you look at lap times, I was about, on average, 2 seconds a lap faster at all tracks this year than I was last year on my 450. So it was definitely a stepping stone in the right direction. And, I'm really excited for 2022. And yeah, I was a long version of it, but that's pretty much my story.
No, that's an interesting story, man. But let's back it up a little bit. So when you started, when everything got serious for you and you started riding for Yamaha, you just completely skipped the 250F. You rode it a couple times and you jumped right on the 450. How was that? Just like, you felt more comfortable on the 450, just jumping from a smaller class straight up to a 450?
Honestly, it was partly because I just needed to jump to a 450 because I kept blowing 250s up, and it was costing my parents an arm and a leg.
Okay.
But at the same time, there was this event coming up called Moto Park Cup, which was an event I was sponsored by Moto Park at the time, so I had to go do it. But for the pros and intermediates, there was only 450 classes. There was no 250 classes.
Oh.
So our friend actually loaned us a 450, and my dad pretty much said, well, if you can hold on to it and you're riding the bike and you're not out of control, then we'll see where we go from here in the future and see if I buy you one. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fair, because if I'm out of control, we're not going to buy one, because that would be dangerous.
Yeah,
So, we did that, and it turned out awesome, and then we pretty much just got onto 450s right there and just kept going.
Wow, interesting. Now you were coming back and forth. You said doing a lot of riding. I seen on one of your videos I think you were at Club MX, and how was that training? How do you feel that that's played a part into your riding today?
Yeah, for sure. Originally I was down at Moto Park County Line, which is now known as Dexter Training Facility. It's down in Florida. I was just there because I knew the owners. And I knew them very personally, so it was just a good place to train. So I was there for 2018, 2019. Then they sold it, and then I was at Club MX in 2020 for 2 months. And me and my dad have had many conversations about Club MX, and it's hard to put into words. Like, I'm going there again this year. So obviously, it's definitely a good training facility. But back when I was there in 2020, it was a bad arse place to be at. Like, there was, and it still is. You can never have a day there where you're just off your game a bit. Like, every single day, it's pretty much a race. There's always dudes that are fast there. I remember when I was there in 2020, I was feeling fairly fast, and I was on a 450. And there was 125s keeping up to me, and I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, what's going on here? Like, feel like I'm riding fast, and there's 125s keeping up with me. And he's just like, dude, they're that fast in the States.
Wow.
So Club MX is an awesome place, and that's why I'm going there again, because there's so many fast people. It just helps you get better. But yeah, it's definitely a cool place, and it's definitely made me a lot mentally tougher. Because you have to be mentally tough to live there and to train there.
So let's recap your outdoor season. How'd your outdoor season? How'd you come up with the injury, and how that puts you out of the game for now? And how's your action? It's like a 3-part question. How are you doing with your injury now?
Yeah, outdoors was mediocre. It started off pretty bad. The numbers weren't there. The riding wasn't there. And I didn't get to go down south in 2021 in the spring. So we didn't have any pre-training. We literally brand new brand of bike since I was on Yamaha for 8 years, and then we were jumping straight to an Austrian frame and bike. So that was definitely new. and that was definitely difficult. And we lost 200 cc's, so there was a whole lot of changing parts. So
Yeah.
the beginning of the season was not very good, and then we progressively got better. We got a couple top fives throughout the year. And then by the end, we were really starting to pick it up, which was exciting. But it was the end of the season, so it was a little
Mm-hmm.
late.
Yeah.
And then we got into Supercross, and quite honestly, I'm not a Supercross guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd like to go down to the States and stuff, but go down to the States and race outdoors. I'm not really Supercross isn't really my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got in 2020 I crashed and broke my humerus
Mm.
in Supercross. Um, and then this year crashed and broke my hand in Supercross. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
definitely not my best friend, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like for me to do it properly, I really need to train for a couple months at it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like where in Canada they give us no time. Like there's the last national, and 2 weeks later is Supercross. So we only
Yeah.
have really a week to get ready because it takes a week for your suspension to get built, and then by the time you get it on your bike and get to the track, you really only have 2 to 3 days to even practice before the first race.
Wow.
So realistically, just Supercross isn't my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. It's the same for everyone, so I can't
Yeah.
complain.
Yeah.
Everyone has to go through the same thing, so
Yeah.
it is what it is. But yeah, this year I went to Supercross. Honestly, I rode fairly well compared to years past.
Mm-hmm.
I did pretty well, and I'm not gonna lie, I was super nervous just
Mm-hmm.
to get hurt. Me and my dad had this conversation about how I've broken a bone and been hurt every single year since 2012.
Wow.
So that's 9 years in a row now that I've been hurt at some point or another.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that say just forget about it. It's racing. They're in the past. Just keep going. And I've heard that from people that are close and dear to me and do
Mm-hmm.
mean a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that easy. As bad as it sounds, it's just not that easy. I've broken my back 3 times.
3 times?
Um,
Oh my
I've
gosh.
yeah, I've broken both bones in my left forearm. I broke my humerus. I broke my scapula. My finger this year. My hand last year. Last year I was broken. I was riding with a broken and dislocated toes and feet when I broke my arm.
Hmm.
So you know what I mean. It's just there's been a rope of injuries that have just they take a toll on your mind. And I actually watched a podcast with Ryan Dungey not that long ago, and he was saying how there's a fine line of let it get to you and also don't let it get to you, but think about it and know it can happen, but just kind of you know let it happen, but try and forget about it. And that's kind of where I'm at. I don't want to get hurt. Obviously, it sucks getting hurt. You don't want to get hurt. But it definitely, I'm not going to lie, like in Supercross this year, it played a role in my mind, which I feel like held me back, which kind of makes me mad because I felt like I could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
But just the thought of getting hurt really was messing with my mind. And then in the very last race, with about 5 laps to go, 5 laps from the end of the season, um, I went on off and then went to go do a triple, and my foot hit the tough block. And then honestly, I knew it was going to be really bad. So I just closed my eyes and waited for all the impact.
Mm.
And the impact definitely happened. I as I don't mean to shout out all my sponsors on here like
No,
crazy,
do
but
it. We don't mind. Do so.
I would honestly, I don't think I'd be walking without my Atlas brace.
Mm-hmm.
I broke my Atlas brace in half, so I seriously can't give a big enough thank you to those guys, because I broke my Atlas brace right in half, and I also can't thank Troy Lee Designs for their awesome helmets because I broke my helmet. I cracked my
Wow,
helmet
that
right
was
down
a
the
hell of
middle.
an impact there.
So you definitely know it was a hell of a hit, and from what I was told, and my dad's my mechanic. I forgot to tell that story in my story, but
Mm-hmm.
my dad's been my mechanic forever, and he's always been by my side. And honestly, I don't want anyone else other than my dad, so he'll probably be with me till my career is over or till he can't walk. But anyways, yeah, my dad's my mechanic, so he was watching me race, obviously, and he said he's never even seen a crash that big live. So
Wow,
it
wow.
was a crazy crash, and I went to the hospital. Well, actually, I crashed, and then I I stayed around, signed some autographs while I was spitting blood out my mouth, and there was people there that were like, "Why are you signing autographs right now? Like, get in a truck and go to the hospital." And I was like, "No, I need like, there's a kid here. I need to sign autographs."
Wow.
And that's just kind of the person I am. So I was signing autographs, and then my teammate Ryan Derry still had to race, so I stayed around, watched his race, and then my dad and Steve Sims loaded me in the truck and sent me to the hospital. But it was actually fun. Well, not funny, but the day before, because we raced Saturday and Sunday. The day before, I crashed and fell in the whoops, and I landed right on the end of my handlebar. Like, my bike fell over, and I landed right on the end of the handlebar, right in my groin. And then I ended up. I got off from the practice, and I was puking, and I was like, there was a huge goose egg right in my crotch, and it was bad. I couldn't even lift my legs. So for the rest of Saturday, no one really saw it. There was no videos of it. I kind of wish there was, because it would have been a memory to have forever. But Steve Sims actually had to lift me onto my motorcycle just so I could race. Like, I couldn't get my leg over my bike. So Steve actually had to lift me up under my armpits and lift me onto my bike. And then you'll see there's a couple pictures. My dad's balancing me on the gate and stuff, and I had to start with one foot because I couldn't even move my leg. It was so numb. But anyway, Saturday night we got that somewhat figured out. Put a bunch of Rub A535 and a whole bunch of crap on it. The medics told me to go to the hospital, but I'm stubborn and I hate the hospital, so I was like, no way, I'm not going. So I didn't go. And then I raced Sunday and then had my big crash. So I was at the hospital, and my dad, one time he crashed, and he broke, I think it was like his leg or something. And then he said, does anything else hurt? And then my dad was like, my wrist is kind of sore. So then they x-rayed it, and sure enough, it was broken. So when we went to the hospital, my dad said, you need to tell them absolutely everything that's sore, because I would rather get you a million scans and nothing be wrong than not have a scan and miss something. So I did exactly that. I went there. My collarbone had this huge bruise on it, and it was so sore. It was crazy. You would have sworn it was broken, but luckily it wasn't. My heel, I couldn't even move it. Still to this day, it's pretty stiff, but I mean, they told me nothing's wrong with it. I actually blew all the buckles out in that boot and everything. I feel like if I didn't have my Alpine Star boots on, I probably would have broke my ankle as well, but luckily I didn't. So, I mean, it was an intense hit. Like I said, I broke all my neck brace, my helmet, my boot blew apart, everything. So, anyways, I got all my scans done. I think I had my ankle done, my hip, my pelvis, my collarbone, and then I had my head, obviously. So, anyways, the only thing that ended up being broken was my hand, which ended up being quite a mess, to be honest. I went to the hospital. They told me, no, you don't need surgery. It's fine. Just put it in this cast and it'll heal. So I was like, okay, if that's what the doctor says, then I'll believe the doctor. So then I went home, and then the next day I woke up and I was complaining about my hand and how sore it was. And my mom and my dad were just kind of like somewhat joking with me, just being like, dude, you broke a bone. Obviously it's going to be sore. And I was like, yeah, but this feels different. Like, I've broken a lot of bones in my life, but this is different. And I had a removable cast, so I took the cast off, and my whole arm and hand were just black, like as black as the backdrop behind me. Like, it was black. And my mom was like, this is scary. Like, are you gonna lose your hand? So we rushed to the hospital, and they pretty much just said, nope, that's the type of injury you have, and it is what it is. You just got to let it happen. So I was like, damn. I mean, obviously this is no joke, but I don't think it going black is probably what should be happening. But whatever, it is what it is. So then I got a new cast, new x-ray. Doctor still said no surgery. It was a different hospital, so a different doctor. So I was like, well, if two doctors say no surgery, then seriously, it's got to be no surgery. And then I went for a 2-week checkup, and I saw the x-rays, and immediately I called my dad and Steve and all the people that are somewhat close to me. I'm like, you look at this one and then look at this one. Tell me which one's worse. And it was clear that the updated one was far worse than the one when I went there with the black hand. So we got on the phone with absolutely everyone. Actually, thank you to Derek Schuster as well. He called around, and everyone was trying to find me a surgeon to get my hand fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up finding one in Collingwood, which was cool. And he got me, that was a Friday, and he ended up getting me into surgery on Monday,
Wow.
which was super cool.
Very cool.
And he did, he put pins in my hand, which I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, but a lot of other people saw that video on my Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, the pins ended up not holding and didn't work. So the pins got taken out, and then, it ended up 5 weeks after the crash. I went in for the surgery I needed and got a plate and 5 screws. And now I think we're at 11 weeks. And last week I just got my cast off.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's definitely been I wouldn't say a hard recovery, but you know what I mean. Like I can still walk, I can still function, and all this
Yeah.
stuff. But it's just been, it took me 5 weeks to get the proper surgery, whereas, I could have had that right away,
Yeah.
had, someone else noticed it. But it is what it is, and, I don't want to sound all, like sayings, but I do believe everything happens for a reason, so it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm finally out of the cast and got a pretty cool scar.
Oh yeah. It
And
looks pretty.
yeah, I got a little bit of movement, but not
Mm.
much movement, and it's still don't have any feeling in it. But it is what it is. Doctor said it'll come back, so it is what it is. And I've been at work for I think 3 weeks now. I went to work for 2 weeks with a cast on because I was like, this is it. I can't do this anymore. I can't sit at home and not do anything. I need money and I need to be busy. So I went to work with a cast on for 2 weeks. My boss is super cool. Him and his son. Him and his 2 sons race. So he always, when I need time off, he lets me have it off. And he was totally understanding about the injury, which was super cool. So I've been at work for 3 weeks, but only 1 week with the cast off. And then last Friday, I went riding on my dad's 125, and that was it was a lot of fun. It was definitely super sore. I only got the cast off on Tuesday. So my wrist was still kind of like jello because even though I didn't break my wrist, it was in a cast for 11 weeks. So it was definitely sore, and my finger was sore, but it was a lot of fun. And I mean, as long as everything stayed in place, I go for another checkup in December. But as long as everything stayed in place, it was well worth it. And yeah.
Wow, man, you got an interesting backstory and what led up into now. That's very interesting. You kind of been through your fair share of injuries. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely been through a lot, and there's been many where they have funny stories within them. Like I don't remember what year, but I was at Walton, and it was a practice day. Crashed, couldn't move my elbow. Anyways, me, my mom, and my dad went to the hospital, and my dad's like, "It's not even broken. I don't even know why we're here," and all this stuff. And then I ended up walking out with a cast all the way up to my armpit, and I broke my elbow in 3 spots. So there's a bunch where it's a crappy story, but there's funny backstories to it now that I look back at it. And I don't mean to throw my dad under the bus, but it's just funny memories like that kind of make some of the injuries a little bit worth it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's crazy, man. That you gone through all that. So what are your goals now? What do you feel that your wrist is probably maybe 10% better, but you're already jumping on the 125. I know winter's coming up. You got a gas snow bike built for you, ready to go?
No, the guys over at True North, they offered it to me again this year, but like I said earlier, I'm planning to head down to Club MX. So for me to be able to do it, I would only be able to do 2 of the races. So it really wouldn't be logical to try and take a snow bike kit that they could offer to some other kid that he can race the entire thing and truly enjoy it.
That's true.
So I just let them have it back, but they did offer it to me, which was awesome and cool of them. I mean, I definitely hope I can do it again in the future. But yeah, I'm planning to head down to Club MX in late February for 2 months. So
nice. Well, man, it's a pleasure having you on the show today, and it's an honor. And like I said, I want to say thank you. You got a lot of interesting stories. We'd love to have you back at any given point, any given time. You're always welcome. And if you ever make it out to Southern California, I used to live and I grew up racing I think I told you in Southern California, Northern California area, but I grew up in Southern California, and my hometown track was probably the roughest track in Southern California, which is Glen Helen. Everybody knows it. But I lived about 15 minutes away from that track. So I was always around motocross. You know, we got an NHRA drag strip right down the street, so I was always involved around the motor scene. But when I first threw my leg over a dirt bike was about six years of age, and it was my first love, and I'm still in love to this day. I spent quite a few years, you know, working in injury in the industry for major people. I'm not going to throw any names out there, but I've been whored out in the industry, but I've learned a lot, and which brings me to this point in this podcast. But if you ever make it out to Southern California and you need a place to stay, don't worry about paying for anything, because I can put you in a nice place where you can get some training if you ever take the outdoors serious out that way, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. That's super awesome, and I can't thank you enough for having me on this podcast. It's definitely a cool opportunity for me and for all the people that you have on your show in the future. Just because not a lot of us get to showcase ourselves or get ourselves out there in the winter time, especially.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a cool opportunity, and I'm definitely very thankful for it. And I definitely hope that I can be on again very soon, and we can tell some more stories or talk about motocross or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Like today was just laying the foundation down, coming, kind of getting the feel for everything and getting the feel for you. And you were the very first guest, and it was an honor having you as a first guest. And I love to have you back whenever you're ready. We're ready, so we're ready to hear some of those stories, man. Definitely for sure. And we'll definitely be in contact with each other. And I'm waiting for that jersey for this wall right here, buddy. So whenever you get a chance, so you'll be the first one hung up there. I got a spot already ready for you. So
sounds good.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
make sure you get it.
Thank you, man. Thank you, and I'll send you out a little gift pack as well. And like I said, thank you for the opportunity, Sam. It was a pleasure. We'll be in contact with you, and we'll talk again, brother. I know you gotta. I know it's you just getting off of work. It's fairly getting a little late. You probably haven't even eaten anything yet, but get home, get showered up, and we'll be in contact with you, brother. And I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Sam. Oh,
Sounds good.
before we leave, I want you to plug your sponsors, man. Plug your sponsors.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you again very much for having me on here. Like I said, I'm very thankful for this opportunity to be on BlackListed Mx. It means a lot to me. As for my sponsors, I mean, as bad as it sounds, I didn't get on the podium a ton this year, so I'm kind of crappy with them, but I'll try and list them all off. I mean, I got to practice a little bit at Walton when I rode the 125 there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Chorley Designs, Gas, Steve Sims Racing. I definitely, once again, I can't thank Steve enough. I wouldn't be where I am without Steve, because Steve, he's kept me afloat when I thought, things weren't going to go well. So huge thank you to Steve. I really wouldn't be here without him. Next, obviously, my mom and dad. They've been here more than anyone else that I could ever think of. They've supported me through thick and thin, so thank you to my mom and dad. All my family, my grandmas, my aunts, my uncles, my sister, all my family. Thank them so much. And then obviously all the team sponsors. I mean, I don't know them all off by heart, but Han Wheels, Pro Taper, Hinson Clutches, Throttle Syndicate, Train Custom Carpentry, Devin Train for letting us come ride at his track this year, Bill Gillespie for letting us ride at his track, my uncle for helping me in the springtime when everyone was in lockdown. There's so many sponsors, Pirelli, Motul, Sunoco. Man, there's so many. I'm not great at it, but
Yeah.
I'm definitely thankful for everyone, and everyone that I forgot. Thank you all so much.
Right on, right on. We appreciate it, Sam, and we'll be seeing you again for sure. Thank you for your time, buddy, and I will be in contact with you. And thank you for supporting BlackListed Mx as we support you.